finish things up here with just the overall region, because it is worth mentioning El Tri and Mexico. And as successful as the USMNT were this summer, it was disastrous for Mexico and Tata Martino's project, not only to lose the Nations League in the way that it was a tremendous final, but also the Gold Cup, because yes, of course, plenty of those players were at the Olympics, but still it was a relatively strong team and they couldn't win at the Gold Cup. So Dre Cordero, let me throw it to you first. How important, as much as it is for Greg Berhalter and co, because obviously they want to return to the World Cup, how important is it for Mexico now to kick things right?
Well, it's not important. It's an obligation, right? And it always is an obligation for Mexico to win, especially in this region, to finish first, to beat the United States, to continue to dominate. And they have the player pool to do it. It's still a very, very talented Mexico team. They fielded a strong side in the final against the U.S. in Denver in that Nations League. And you could make the argument, could have won it, should have sent it into extra time, if not for the heroics by Horvath. Yeah, it's an obligation for Mexico. They'll still feel, I don't think one summer is going to change the Mexican mentality of being the sort of the hegemon of this region. I think they still expect when they line up against anybody in CONCACAF, and to be fair, a lot of teams outside of the region as well, that Mexico can play better, can outscore them, and can beat them. I think they're doing a bit of soul searching now, though, because Tata Martino is arguably the best manager in the region. He came in with all of these accolades and all of this experience. I think you go back to what he did with Paraguay, Copa America, all the way back in 2011, and he had this propensity to get the most out of teams that were okay and turn them into way more than okay. Well, Mexico were supposed to be the top dogs in the region, and they've now underperformed in back-to-back finals against the United States. And so how does that, considering that they're still going to go into it thinking they're favorites, is that in the back of their mind now if they're down 1-0 against the United States? Listen, it's a permissive World Cup qualifying process, because you're going to get 3.5 teams in, and there are, USA and Mexico are probably within that scope. But what I do want to touch on, though, is we talk about, for example, with Peru and the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers as being the most exciting process of World Cup qualifying in the world, because, it's over 3 years long. It's 10 teams. I think this is CONCACAF stumbling across an even better format. And just follow me on this journey for a second, right? Because in the span of 7 months, you have 8 teams. It's supposed to be 6. And, they sort of back into this better format. 8 teams in the octagonal competing for 3.5 spots in the span of 7 months. That's like if you take the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers and condense them down to half a year. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how Mexico and the U.S. and the teams that are favorites are going to react to that when they're playing, 3-game windows. I think it's a big challenge for them, especially when you're expected to win and you're going to have, 3 games in successive fashion, meaning you're going to have to rotate your squad a bit more. I think you can get caught out in this format easier than what was intended to be, sort of a longer process with this final hexagonal.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, I just wanted to say, Dre makes some good points about Mexico. If Tata Martino is looking at this and removes all the emotion around the games and the finals, and if Greg Berhalter, the U.S. manager, goes and looks at it the same way, the difference really was between the two teams was set pieces. Mexico had the lead in the Nations League final with 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left, and then all of a sudden Weston McKennie scores, and we do just enough. Actually, both goals. Gio Reyna got his goal too off of a set pieces, and then we got the penalty. All 3 of the goals we scored in the Nations League final, set pieces, and of course Horvath made that save. And then we fast forward to the Gold Cup final. Miles Robinson scores on a set piece. We can even go to the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And it's a set piece that ends up winning it for us, the MLS All-Stars over Liga MX Keys All-Stars. There's something there about set pieces, and I think the margins are very fine there, because in a lot of those games, I thought Mexico, maybe not so much the Gold Cup final, but definitely in the Nations League final, where I thought Mexico were the better team for a good portion of it. And then Christian Pulisic was actually pretty quiet. Now, we remember him ripping his shirt off after he scored the penalty, and he's shushing everybody, and an amazing, iconic photo and an iconic moment for sure in our national team program. But when you look at the balance of the game and you go back and watch it, Mexico were really dictating the terms there, and we got to feel fortunate that we were, switched on for some set pieces. So I don't think the margins are too different between the two teams, but we did show, as we already talked about, propensity now to cope with some adversity and figure out ways to win. Those 2 teams for me are the top. For me, I think Canada is the surprise team, is number 3. Costa Rica still relying on an old group of players. Brian Ruiz stands out for me. Honduras is doing the same. Panama is doing the same. Those 3 teams are still in that identity crisis. We've got these older guys that we're hanging on to, but they're not the same as they used to be. And we got our younger guys that aren't really pushing those old guys out. And the U.S. was there for a little bit in some of our 2018 World Cup qualifying, where we had some of the same issues, where our younger guys just weren't ready and our older guys were getting a little bit too old. We're seeing that now with those teams. I think Canada is going to move up into that third spot. I think John Herdsman, the manager, has done a great job with them. I thought they were very competitive in the Gold Cup. And I think that that's going to be a tough game, not only for us in this first iteration of World Cup qualifying, but for every team. And I actually think Canada is going to book that third spot. And then that fourth spot's wide open between the teams I mentioned. El Salvador, maybe I'll give them an outside shot. But I just think that one of those, Costa Rica, Honduras, or Panama, will get that fourth spot.
Yeah, much context needs to be added here, by the way, as of course the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A are basically, not basically, they are not allowing certain players to travel, of course. And that's a major issue for Jamaica, by the way. A team that's looking to reinvent itself once again. Raul Jimenez, Hector Herrera, players like that. You have to watch out to see what happens as that develops, as Europe, of course, continues to deal with the red list that they have, the respective red list in accordance to what's going on for the rest of the world. That's another thing. And by the way, FIFA reduced the ban on Mexico from multiple matches, obviously because of the homophobic chant, to just one, which is well, it's kind of a joke. What do you think here? Both of you, I'll throw it to both of you. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not a surprise. We knew that on appeal they would reduce. That was a good question. This actually goes back to the Nations League when they started implementing this protocol. And the cynic in you immediately asks, well, like, how serious are they? Are they going to take a strong stance on this? And I think in the back of your head, you're always thinking, probably not that serious. It depends on whether or not it costs them money.
Yeah. Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big, it's a joke. I don't think it's, you want to see your governing body back up the original ban at the very least, and say, hey, we believe in what you're trying to do, and we're going to back it up as it goes. Like, nah, we'll go a little bit less. You're like, what? It's just defies logic for me, and I don't understand. Some of the decisions that are made by FIFA, UEFA, CONCACAF. I mean, all the governing bodies.
It happened again at the All-Star game, right? It's not as if like, oh, well, it's time out for good behavior. Well, not really. We saw it again. It wasn't the national team, but we saw it happen again at the MLS All-Star game.
They need to figure out a stronger way to do it, and the way to do that is to not allow fans into the game. That will get it done. But money ultimately dictates a lot of decision making. So here we are.